All right, it is time to open up your hips. Join me for a few exercises on a mat or on a rug. Make sure you find a soft padded floor to work on. It's gonna help your joints a lot. And then if you can find some sort of pillow or cushion to have by your side, we're gonna use that later on. And we're gonna start in a seated position with our legs in front of us. And we're gonna begin with some windshield wipers. So feet about at least 2 feet apart in front of you and about 2 feet away from your hips. And we're just gonna simply rock the knees side to side. So working on some nice mobility to oil up the joints here, just a simple rotation, working on internal and external rotation at the same time. Hands are behind me and using that for some leverage and support, trying to keep your back as straight as you can. So I'm slightly squeezing the shoulder blades together, pressing the floor away, keeping my back straight, and then rocking the knees side to side so I'm ending up in this 90-90 position. So maybe a couple more times, and then I'm gonna shift the knees over to the left side. So if this is a bit uncomfortable for you, all you gotta do is bring both heels in slightly to make it a little bit less than 90 degrees. I'm still gonna use my hands to support me, try to get it as upright as possible. Now, if this is bothering you too much on the inner hip that's rotated inwards, all you gotta do is just lean away from that right leg, okay? So you can play around with it. And we wanna rotate our chest towards this front knee so it's in line with that front knee, and adjust yourself accordingly, hands on the side, lengthen the spine, and then we're gonna shift the weight forward, not rounding at the spine, but keeping that spine nice and strong, slight engagement of the core, because I'm already starting to feel that stretch. And so just gently pulsing forward and back, leaning into that front shin, and then as you go back, actually using the shin and knee to push away. So there's an active engagement, it's a dynamic movement. Breathing in, breathing out. So all the exercises we're doing here are going to help open up the hips. It's gonna make sitting on the floor easier. It's gonna make your back feel better. It's going to be helpful for sitting cross-legged if you're working on a meditation seated position. So now we've gone about 15 times here back and forth, and then I'm going to lean a little bit more forward and hold this stretch here. It's slightly active in the sense that I'm still pushing this front shin down into the floor. Simultaneously, I'm using my hands, okay, to give me some balance. Now, if you feel really strong in this position, you can lift your hands up off the floor, right? And we're gonna pulse again. So the next progression here is to do this without the hands. So it's requiring both hips to engage here to balance me. Again, I'm rotating towards this front knee. If you need to adjust, you know your body, that's important. Listening to your body. We want to find the edge of discomfort, but there's a difference between discomfort and pain. For those of you who deal with nerve pain, sciatic-like symptoms, so you might feel a little bit of tingling here. Generally speaking, we're actually working the line of that nerve as it passes through the hip. So you might start to feel a little bit of sensation again, just avoiding any sharp pain. Okay, so another round of 15 there, and then we're gonna hold it. And notice the breath. Like how are you breathing? Maybe a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And notice, I'm not going super deep in the stretch. I can just kind of fall here, but not necessarily get an effective stretch, because once I really keep the integrity through the spine, I'm feeling the stretch in a whole different way through the hips. Okay, nicely done. So let's shift our weight over to the right side, or whichever side that you didn't do. I'm just gonna angle myself here a little bit so you can see from a different angle. We got the 90-degree position here, or a little bit less if you need to, perfectly okay. I like to frame the leg with hands on either side, keeping the spine as straight as I can. So, you know, the hips, I believe, are one of the most important regions of the body. Our hips are what generate a lot of our power for walking, running, sports. And at the same time, the hip joint is one of the most mobile joints in the body, being a ball and socket, along with our shoulder. So we really need this combination of strength and flexibility. So I'm going to lean into it here. Again, try to rotate, align, straighten out the spine. And each day is different, each side is different. Just meet your body where you're at and offer some gratitude for what your body does for you. So we're gonna move into the pulsing again. If you want to up the ante here, again, no hands. You can bring your hands together or create some wings. And I'm just shifting forward, maybe halfway, going to that edge, simultaneously pressing the floor away. That's how I'm coming back up. Now, even if you are using your hands, make sure to engage by pressing that front shin, knee, ankle into the floor. You're doing so great. This is a challenging one, but also just super important. Okay, and then we're gonna hold the stretch, again with the hands, without the hands, or somewhere in between. And I'm already feeling huge difference in the hips here. And what's great is this is not just a stretch, this is a dynamic movement that's going to bring both the mobility, the strength, the flexibility, all of that combined. Okay, so now we're going to take it to another level. So I'm gonna go back to the left side. A few different options here, hands or no hands, but we're gonna lean forward, okay? And we're gonna press off this front shin knee, okay? To come up to this position to extend the hips fully. This is where it would be helpful to have extra padding on the floor. As I come up, I'm leaning forward as you would in a squat, pushing both knees simultaneously into the floor, and then leaning forward, reaching forward as I come down. So even just a few of these here, I'm breathing hard already. This is challenging, and it's really working on engaging the external rotators here on this outside leg. Simultaneously internal rotation on the inside leg. Okay, we're gonna go for 8 on this side. I'd recommend doing 2 to 3 rounds of this on each side. Each of the exercises we're doing. We're gonna go to the other side here. Let's go for 8 together again. Start by using your hands, lean into it, pushing the floor away. Now with this one, what I've noticed is harder to maintain 90-90. The ankles come in a little bit for a little bit more leverage. Again, you can play with the angle. Here, my body is facing more of the shin and the ankle versus the knee in terms of leverage to come up. And then I'm leaning forward as I come down. See if you can slow it down as you lower, coming up with a little bit more force and just playing around with the angles here. Ooh. Nicely done, nicely done. So the next thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna come back to that, but we're gonna do a stretch next. And this is where it's good to have a pillow, have my my yoga pad here that I'm gonna sit on. And we're gonna start in a cross-legged position. And I'm gonna bring, my left foot is on the outside. I'm gonna bring it up and over, and the ankle is gonna rest on the right knee. So this is called double pigeon or fire log. And before we get into the stretch, just try to sit up as much as you can. I'm gonna bring this right leg in a little bit. And now I'm gonna lower the right knee to the floor, ankles on top of the knee, and I'm breathing, lifting up, and just allowing the stretch to happen here for a moment. And eventually, the knees will come to touching the ankles. I'm going to engage this bottom leg knee by pressing it up into the ankle. So we'll do 10 to 15 little pulses. There's not much movement happening because there's a lot of weight on it. You should feel that on the outside of the right hip or whichever leg is on bottom. For the anatomy nerds out there, gonna get a stretch of the TFL, maybe a little bit of that side glute medius and some of the hip flexor too. So there's a lot that's getting stretched. It's really important for getting that open cross-legged position. Now, relax the pulse of the knee up. I'm just gonna do a pulse shifting forward. Again, keeping the spine as lengthened as possible. One other thing I mentioned that might be helpful for this one is sitting with your back against the wall. And just to give a little bit of extra support, for me, I like having a cushion underneath the hips. If you're super flexible, I mean, that's great. You may not even need a cushion, but stack up your hips as much as you need to here. Nicely done. And just notice how the breath is. I'm trying to extend the breath as much as I can, and we're gonna switch sides. My right ankle on top of the left knee. And as much as possible, we're making a 90-degree angle, but if it's too much, just bring the bottom ankle closer into your body. That will lessen the stretch. So you notice too, you can kind of shift your weight side to side here. Ideally, we want both sit bones pressing down, right? So you're gonna feel tilted towards one side. So I have to shift over to the right a little bit. And same deal here. This bottom knee is going to pulse up 10 to 15 times. I wanna make sure to keep this top ankle and foot locked. So I'm not just torquing on the ankle here. So keep that nice and strong. Pulse and breathe. This knee is coming up and down, feeling that engagement. Nicely done. And now we're gonna do our leaning forward pulses. I'm gonna see if I can lengthen my spine a little bit more. And as I lean forward here, right, then this knee is gonna start to come lower. I'm gonna feel the stretch on the outside of both. And wow. I am feeling this. Make sure to keep both ankles, feet flexed so that we protect the knees. Again, if you're feeling any sharp pain, that's just a sign that your body is telling you to ease off. Another deep breath here. It's about 15. That's great. Ooh, nicely done. Because we did all this stretching here, I find it really important to follow that up with a little bit more engagement, right? So just the passive stretching, or sometimes even the dynamic stretching, is not enough until you really start to integrate it. And how we're gonna do that, we're going to get into this 90-90 position, lift off. You might even feel the difference here. We'll go for another round of about 8. Breathing in, leaning forward as you're coming up, leaning forward as you're coming down. One day, both sit bones will rest on the floor, but you gotta work with where you're at. You're doing great. this is going to pay off big time for the hips. Another thing that you can explore on your own, maybe after this, is all the different ways of getting up off the floor without using your hands. So this is definitely, you know, one of those ways where you can then come into a lunge and step up. You'll be able to just do that with the strength of your legs and not even need to use your hands, which is a great indicator of just overall health and strength. And having this kind of mobility is going to be helpful for so many of these day-to-day tasks and getting into tight spaces, reaching down, getting low, and plus just feels really good in the body. So yeah, if you have goals around performance, athletics, you know, that's great. It's going to help with this, and just generally moving around and having that freedom in your hips. Good. Maybe one more here. And oh, yeah, I'm just gonna shake that out a few times. I'm gonna do a reverse tabletop here. Again, just to integrate that. I already feel that engagement in the hips. If this is too hard on your wrists, you can just do a glute bridge. But now we're really integrating some of the stretching that we've just done. And we're going to hold on this last one. This is good for the whole back body. Really feeling the hips on fire. And then the last thing we're going to do is finish off with a pigeon stretch. So I'm going to show a different way of getting into it. So we found this 90-90 position, my left leg's forward, and maybe you're just here today for the stretch like we were doing earlier, or we are going to try to straighten this back leg now. And then instead of just coming down, I'm actually going to use the hands and a little bit of engagement here to try to keep my spine straight. Do that for about 15 seconds. And then we can come into more of a deep stretch. It might be challenging to just come straight here. If that's the case, bring your pillow, put it underneath the hip, okay? And then come into that stretch, keeping the hips square. And taking a deep breath. And this is the part where you just let go. Let gravity do its magic. Taking another deep breath in and out. Slowly coming on up. Shifting the weight to the other side. Show a slightly different angle. Okay, and then same thing, so 90-90. So then straighten the back leg. Again, maybe you might need to just stay in the 90-90. And I'm gonna start with a little bit more of an active stretch, engaging the front knee. You can kind of think of pulling the front knee and the back knee towards each other, pushing them down into the mat, creating an energetic pull into the midline. Nicely done. And then coming lower, maybe placing a pillow underneath the hips and coming to that stillness. Three more deep breaths. Slowly rising And we're gonna finish in our cross-legged position, just noticing the difference that that makes, right? And this is gonna help you sit upright. It's gonna help with so many things. Also releasing a lot of emotional tension that we store in the hips. So thank you for joining along today, and I encourage you to practice this one regularly. Incorporate the breath, tune into the body, and just like we did, kind of integrate it with some strengthening exercises, some that I showed you, but you can also just from here, get up and maybe do some walking, maybe a few squats or lunges to really integrate what we did. But you should be ready to rock and roll and enjoy the rest of your day.